Hey, welcome to the One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute with your host, the alchemist of Indiana's Black Forest, Alan Bishop. Hey, this channel is all about home distilling and legal distilling. If you've got questions, reach out to us in the comments below, social media, or via bishopshomegrown@gmail.com. And don't forget to check out thealchemistcabinet.com. Hey guys, welcome back to the One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute with your host, the alchemist of Indiana's Black Forest. Freshly returned from a trip to George Washington's Mount Vernon, which was very much spiritually needed and very much needed to recharge my energies for this art and this passion of distillation that I have. I got to spend the week with some of the most talented people in the world at Mount Vernon making whiskey in the style that George Washington and Mr. Anderson had made from 1797 till 1799. Listen, guys, that place is super special, beyond anything else distilling world special in a lot of ways. That is my Mecca. That is my church. That is where I worship. That's where I center myself. I can get out of my own head and go hang with people that really know what they're talking about and make traditional rye whiskey. Very few distillers can say that they've worked for George Washington. And while George Washington may not be there physically, he is certainly there spiritually and commands the place. And that is something super unique, something I cannot thank Steve Bayshore and his staff for, Corey and Amy, enough. And the people that I got to meet, the things I got to experience, the conversations I got to have. If you follow me on social media, you've seen some of that. I will be doing a podcast about that shortly on the One Piece at a Time, Sacred and Profane. It was very much needed, without a doubt. So back here to answer your questions with more talking head videos, this time with a great big freshly shaved bald head looking like a fat untalented Billy Corgan, as I always do if I don't wear a hat. And I'm going to attempt to read this message here from our comments on the One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute. So if I lean in, my head's off frame for a minute, I do apologize. I'm not the best filmographer in the world. I don't have help with these videos. I don't have help with these podcasts. Production value is not, the top of the line. I got these weird like horn eyebrow things going on. I can't grow no hair on my head, but I grow it everywhere else. Anyways, so move the camera a little here so it kind of sticks with me if I can. I do apologize, guys. I try to do the best I can with these videos. So, all right. So Alan, I so appreciate the answers that you give for the questions asked. I had read a study. This is from Grandpa RLP, by the way. I had read a study that showed that the place copper has the most positive effect is in the vapor path, with the pot being the second most impactful and condenser the least. I am running an 8-gallon on an induction hot plate with a 24-inch long copper Lebesgue. I can adjust my condenser to any angle from level to straight down. As long as it's downward enough for the distillate to run out, does angle matter? It seems to me that a more downward angle would ensue a fully condensed vapor, but that may also not allow for more volatiles to escape as you spoke of. What say you, sir? Thanks. I might add that my column is a 17-inch long copper starting at 2 inches and tapers to 1.5, with the final 6 inches going from 1.5 to 1.5 to 1/2, then to 24 inches long Lebesgue. So I've been a big proponent of this for a long time, that short of with things like single malt whiskey or things that might have a tremendous amount of protein and or nitrogen, the vapor is the most effective in the vapor path. That's not to say that in the boiler that it can't be effective. It certainly can be. If you have stainless steel, I will always recommend putting some copper fittings into your stainless steel boiler. It's not going to hurt anything. It's probably fairly minimally effective, but it's not going to hurt anything. And it only costs you a few dollars to go to Home Depot and buy you some copper fittings and throw them in there just for a little bit of extra sacrificial copper. I very much so believe that having a copper condenser is much more important than a copper pot. Certainly having copper for your vapor path is the most important because, as you said in the study that you read, the vapor path is where it's most effective. I do think, however, that running the right kind of condenser, if it's copper, I still include that as vapor path, right? Because when that vapor enters, it's touching copper before it condenses. And so therefore, like with a Lebesgue that's all copper, there's maybe a little bit of an argument for running it less efficiently at condensing and a little bit more efficiently at, using the copper to actually interact with the spirit or have a conversation with the spirit to pull out those elements that you do not want in your fermentation and distillation. You see this a lot in Scotland, but in the reverse. And what you see in Scotland a lot is distilleries that make the argument that they run worm tubs because worm tubs are less efficient at scrubbing copper because they're more efficient at condensing because they're longer, right? And so there's more water to surface area in the coil than there would be, say, in a Lebesgue or a shotgun condenser. And the reason that they do that is because they want a heavier, what they call a more sulfurous sort of spirit. More meaty is what they tend to think of it. And when I say meaty, meaty, a little bit of a sinus thing for me at Mount Vernon, being around those fires. Plus, who's your mush mouth? It doesn't always work well together. I know I talk fast, and I know I slur my words a little bit, and I know I got that Hoosier thing going on, so I'll try to slow it down and explain words that I hear that I go, oh, well, other people, they may not exactly understand what I'm saying there. So the long and short of it is, I would say that, maybe having that at a slight angle is not a bad thing. It's not a bad idea. I agree with you. I think if you go straight up and down on a Lebesgue condenser, you're getting the most efficiency you can. But then there maybe is an argument that the more tilt that it has to go across. It's the same length regardless. It doesn't matter. Anyways, I think 100% up and down is 100% efficient with a Lebesgue condenser. I think if you want to eat up some more of those unwanted compounds going at maybe a 30-degree angle or something like that, right? To where maybe there is some more conversation with the copper before condensation takes place is not at all a bad thing. So there was another kind of question in there, I think. So let me see if I can find it. So as long as it's downward enough for the distillate to run out, does angle matter? No, it doesn't. Oh, volatiles. So, yes. So having having the vapor struggle a little bit, especially if you have an air outlet where you can vent off some of those volatiles we've talked about in the past. So what I've talked about is, there's positive flavor, negative flavor. Traditional pot stills almost always have air vents on them because they are designed to be able to vent off some of the volatiles that you may not want from certain distillations. Particularly rye comes to mind. If you're getting a spicy characteristic in your rye, and when I say spicy, I mean like black pepper, that's really a volatile that can be gasified and gotten rid of, because the true flavor of rye is much more complex than that spicy black pepper. It's much more, can go anise. Sometimes it can go dill. I'm not a fan of that, but it can go dill. Sometimes it can go lavender. Sometimes it can go jasmine flower. In the case of Mount Vernon, there was one still this past week that on low wines, you would have swore that distillate was derived from jasmine rice of all things, which is a very strange concept, but we're just pulling something out of that rye that you don't ordinarily get. So yeah, I think maybe having it struggle a little bit, let it go a little further without being able to condense 100%. I think you'll be able to vent some of those things off that you don't want. So I hope that answered your question. As always, reach out to me, thealchemistcabinet.com, any of the social medias that I have, which I do not name because I don't have them memorized, and or the YouTube comments below. And be sure to check out the One Piece at a Time, Sacred and Profane, where I will be uploading a podcast that we did at Mount Vernon. And I'll have to edit that because there was some audio interference, unfortunately. So there may be some pieces missing out of that. Keep an eye on Distiller's Talk with Christy Atkinson, where I will be interviewing some of the people I went to Mount Vernon with in the coming near future. And some of those people are world class at what they do. And it's not just distillation. I mean, Mark Meltonville is a great example of what I'm talking about. This gentleman, if you don't know the name, look him up. Trust me, you're going to want to hear it. And make sure you also check out, if you are into the paranormal, high strangeness, or 4TN whatsoever, be sure that you check out If You Have Ghosts, You Have Everything. There's the stupid if you have ghost voice, but with a little bit of a cold, so it doesn't sound quite right. All right, guys. I love y'all. I'll catch you later.